Welcome to the All Metal Mode podcast with your host, Michael Hare. Tune in every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern with co-host Gypsy Jules, and every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern with Matt Hoffman as we talk to guests, discuss metal detectors, equipment, and everything treasure related. Feel free to join in the discussion in the chat room during the show, and please, if you like what you hear, we'd appreciate you taking a moment to hit that like button and share the link with your friends. We hope you enjoy the show. The All Metal Mode podcast starts right now.
Hey everybody, this is Mike here, and you're listening to the All Metal Mode podcast with myself and Gypsy Jules. So, before we get started with Brandon Nicholas, who I'm looking forward to talking to tonight, he has some pretty cool stuff to talk about. We're going to talk, I wanted to go over some quick things real quick. This past week, Lake George, New York, skeletal remains of they believe 11 people were dug up while doing some remodeling on a house. Some Revolutionary War buttons came up. Pretty interesting stuff. So archaeologists are going to go in and do some digging and see what that's all about. Really neat. I'm looking forward to more from that story. 2019 Watts Rendezvous, 3-day gold and treasure hunt, June 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, Mancos, Colorado. That ought to be some fun. I think Gypsy, you're going to be there, aren't you?
I will, yeah. Looking forward to it. It was a blast last year. Got some different things this year, so I'm really excited.
Yeah, that would be a fun one. That would be a fun one, and Wayne will be there. Wayne puts it on. Looks like a lot of fun. Friday, gold prospecting. They're going out to a river to with dredging equipment. Bring your panning stuff. Saturday, giving away gold coins. They're doing tokens. They're burying tokens, and I know there's going to be some gold coins given away. Sunday, the 4-door hunt. Did he explain that to you?
The door hunt?
Yeah.
He did, and if I may be totally wrong on this. I know that in the past what they've done is you find keys that open the door. So
with prizes behind them. Yeah, I think that's a neat. It's $40. I believe it's $40 a night to camp. That's 3 meals a day though, and $45 a night for a bunkhouse. I think that's really good. $215 per person. Cutoff is April 1st, so don't forget that. That sounds like a great hunt. So, what have you been up to, Gypsy?
Not much. I actually got 2 videos up this week, which normally I have 1 up. So, but got 2 videos up on my YouTube channel this week, and tomorrow I'm leaving to go to a hunt with some of the Garrett team. I'll be going with meeting up with KG and Ringy. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Good times. When are you leaving?
I was supposed to leave in the morning, but there is going to be a lot of rain tomorrow. So I think I'll be leaving later in the evening, and then we're going to focus on hunting mainly Wednesday and Thursday instead of originally it was Tuesday and Wednesday. But with the weather being a little crazy, I think that's what we're going to do instead.
Oh, good times. Yeah, we're supposed to have rain all day tomorrow. I'm hoping Wednesday to get out and do a little beach hunting. Local, of course.
Awesome.
Yeah. Local, of course. But yeah, at a lake, one around here that actually has sand. So
Cool.
that ought to be fun.
Hope you find some rings.
Me too.
It'll be a fun room.
Me too. The only problem is it's one of the only beaches around here that actually has sand, and I've heard it there's several people that hunt that on a regular basis. So my hopes aren't high, but I'm going to get out there and do it anyhow.
So, Mike, which detector are you taking with you?
I think I'm going to the Amphibio. I'm going to try it out.
Okay.
On the beach. Yeah.
Cool.
Since I barely had it out since I got it, but yeah, I figured I'll give it a whirl and see what happens. Greg says no picture of you in your bikini. Why not, Greg? Don't be a jerk. I look great in a Speedo, buddy. I kind of look like Gru off of. I probably look like Gru off of the Minions movie. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get some pictures. Never mind, I won't go there. But so anyhow, let's get to it. Tonight's guest is Brandon Nicholas. Heard great things. I personally don't know him or haven't talked to him before, but Gypsy has definitely talked him up, and a lot of other people. So really looking forward to this, Brandon. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I appreciate y'all having me on tonight.
Oh, our pleasure. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for being with us.
So we know recently you were on Relics Radio about a month ago, and you were talking about bottle digging, which is something I have definitely done. And I guess we'll start there. What got you into that? How'd you get started in that?
Well, to tell you the truth, I think that the way that you hunt depends on, or what you hunt, I should say, depends on the area that you live in.
Right.
If you live in Virginia, you're probably after Civil War stuff. If you live in Texas, you may be after Spanish-American War stuff. If you live in Florida, maybe you're after gold rings, or California, you may have to be after gold nuggets. But here in Alabama, we kind of have a large array of different things to hunt. And that being said, there's a little bit of Civil War, but not a ton. There's a little bit of Spanish-American War stuff, but not a ton. There is some other areas for coin shooting and old houses, but it's nothing really colonial like up in the Northeast. So I kind of landed on bottle digging because this is actually one of the places here in Alabama that I live at, is Birmingham, Alabama, is actually one of the places that has one of the rarest Coke bottles in the world. And so we really enjoy going after these because it's really a true treasure with a ton of value if we find one.
Mm-hmm. That's very cool.
What is one of those bottles worth, Brandon? I'm curious.
Well, they call them the Magnificent Seven because there were 7 different variations of this particular style of bottle. It's called a Hutchinson style bottle. 5 of those are in 5 or 7. I'm trying to think right now, but anyways, a good number of the portion of those Hutchinson style bottles are in the state, and they vary from $2,500 up to $10,000 in value, depending on the actual county that it was from. The Birmingham, Alabama Coke bottle, my digging partner actually sold one in 2018 in October. You can pull the records up. It sold for $6,451, and that's one bottle.
Wow.
Incredible.
Have you ever found one?
We have found pieces, sadly. I've been within feet of where one was dug, and I've dug plenty of holes the size of cars and small rooms. And like I said, only pieces so far, so that's kind of what keeps me going. You know, it's kind of my white whale.
Oh, wow.
Well, but in between, you know, there's other valuable bottles, and maybe not that much in your area, but you know, I'm sure you dig $20 bottles and $100 bottles. I mean, it can get pretty crazy on value of bottles.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, those add up for sure.
I dug a bottle last year before I even had it out of the dump. I had a $500 offer on it. I mean, it's definitely, there's a lot of value in the glass. Of course, I didn't sell it because, you know, if I find something that rare, I'm going to keep it because Lord knows I couldn't afford it otherwise.
Right.
But that being said, there's a ton of value in bottles out there. It's really knowing what you're looking at. You know, you always have a ton of people that look at them and you'll be like, oh man, I have some old bottles, and then they'll be showing you some 60s and 70s ACL bottles, and that's the painted label stuff. And you're like, no, that's not old enough. You got to be older than that. Not to say that there isn't some valuable ACL bottles out there, but the age bracket that we try to stay in is between about 1880 and 1925. Some people like the older stuff, the stuff that they find at Civil War camps and in huts. And I would love to have that stuff as well, but we just don't have the area to dig for that here.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me get sidetracked here real quick and blow your mind on this. I'm curious if you know this. What about insulators?
Yeah, we dig insulators as well. I'm not sure why they threw them away, but they did. We dig those quite frequently. Aside from knowing that Hemingray is about one of the most common insulators out there, I don't know a ton about them. I know that the brighter colors, not necessarily the blue ones, like the orange and purple color ones, are worth more. I think there were some amber as well, but as far as value goes on those, I don't know a ton about them, but I know enough that if I dig one, I'll ask somebody else before I let it go for cheap. How about that?
Let me tell you guys a real quick story that just because it's so interesting, and I know it's not metal detecting and stuff, but it's treasure. I was fortunate enough in Springfield, Ohio. Every year they have an insulator show, and I went there one year, and there were people from all over the world, not the country, the world. And I was blown away. Although it's a smaller community, oh my God, are those people dedicated to it. But I know somebody who found an insulator in a field where the farmer tore down the line and stuff. And that bottle sold, that insulator sold for $12,000 and something at an auction. So keep your eyes out. I'm telling you, those insulators can bring big, big money too, much like bottles. So very, very neat thing to get into, bottles and insulators. Very, very cool, I think. Never really got into the insulators, but into the bottles. So did you meet up with somebody that was already bottle digging, or did you have to learn from doing it, or how did that come about?
It came about through my dad. I'm actually a second generation digger.
Ah, there you go.
My dad in the 70s was a big deer hunter, and he was walking through a pine thicket where a piece of pine straw rubbed against a piece of glass, and he heard it make a really nice squeak sound, and he pulled out several really nice flasks, and he brought them home, told his neighbor about them, and apparently his neighbor knew enough to know that they were worth something and paid him a little bit of money for them. And that instilled Dad to realize that, hey, there's a little bit of value in some of these old bottles. He didn't know much, and he got to go into different flea markets and antique malls and all this other kind of stuff, and where he ran into some local diggers at the time. So by the early 80s, he started digging dumps, one of which is in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And that dump produced a lot of his better finds at the time. And he had bottles strewn off from one end of the house to the other, much to my mother's dismay. And I remember growing up and her complaining about having to dust them. But I remember seeing them and thinking the same thing my mom did, is like, man, this is just a bunch of junk. So, when I got older, I started to realize, and what I mean by older was it took me till I was around 20, 21. And he finally took me to a bottle dump. He didn't take me before that because a lot of the areas were deep and very dangerous. He took me out, and I found my first hutch the very first time I went, which is very fortunate.
Wow.
And we had after that, I was hooked. I mean, I was hook, line, and sinker for it. I went home, and I was really, really dirty, and I thought my wife was going to be like, what in the world were you doing? And I told her, and to my surprise, she's like, well, you're going to take me back. So I ended up taking my wife back with me. And we ended up being a husband-wife team diggers for about, I don't know, I guess about 10 years now. We've been digging together until I had my daughter here a few years ago. And my wife has really slacked off now for obvious reasons. But, yeah, that's what got me into it.
That's great. What's some of your better bottles like your favorite bottles? It doesn't have to matter about value or anything, but do you have anything special to you or anything?
Well, I try to collect in-state only and really central Alabama only because, I mean, if you want to get down to the nitty-gritty, between 1890 and 1920, there were over 80 different bottlers just in the Jefferson County or the Birmingham, Alabama area. Wow. And if you were to try to collect each variant, which could be 7, 8, 10 variants per manufacturer, you could be talking about 800 or 900 bottles just to collect one county. So, I mean, that's really, really hard to do, especially in larger city areas like Birmingham or Atlanta or different places like that. So what I've done is I've narrowed it down to a few towns that I go after. And the reason I narrowed it down to the towns, it wasn't necessarily because of the dump locations, but because I like what's called pictorial bottles. And that's bottles that are embossed with pictures on them. And the state has a ton of bottles that are actually have pictures embossed on them. Maybe elephants, camels, Indians, pretty much anything you can think of will be embossed on it. So that was my very first love, was the pictorial bottles. And I tried to collect the towns that had those pictorial bottles and get each variant. And sadly, I've built the collection up, and I've let some of them go, and some of them I still have. And it's like it's a never-ending revolving door. You're constantly moving bottles if you're in this hobby.
Do you have an idea of how many bottles you have, you and your wife have in your collection right now? Or like you said, it's just kind of ever just changing?
It's kind of like right now at my desk, I'm probably looking at 100 bottles that I've got in between shelves and stuff. But she lets me put some of the nicer bottles. Notice that's what she lets. She lets me put some of the nicer bottles in the living room. Obviously, the ones that I've had tumbled and cleaned and that really have a really pretty appeal to them. Obviously, my biggest fear with having a 3-year-old is something getting broke. So I did have some really valuable bottles, and until she got older, I've actually put those up. So,
right.
Yeah, that was my next thing. Those got to be high, in a very safe place.
Yeah, even in a cabinet, you're worried. Like my little girl, she loves to go around kicking her ball, and I can just see it flying, hitting the cabinet, breaking the glass, or knocking the cabinet over. So, I mean, it really becomes an area of real concern. But if I had to guess, I'd say probably here at the house, I've probably got close to probably 500 bottles. I try not to keep duplicates because there, again, I dig so much, usually weekly, that I dig duplicates over and over and over and over again. And I usually will sell those through my eBay store or something like that, or I'll run giveaways on my YouTube channel, giving away hutches or different things that I've dug that I've just run out of. And I also donate to a local museum. We're actually in the middle of working with them to build a bottle display right now, which will be nice for me to be able to donate this stuff and get it out there for other people to look at.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Fantastic.
Yeah, love that. So you dig mostly dumps and not privies. So how do you go about that?
Well, there's in our particular area in Birmingham, because of how large of an area it is, there's about 7 dumps just in Birmingham. A lot of those were found in the 70s and 80s during road construction or building construction. So a lot of them, say they were coming through and they were putting the interstate through or the freeway. When they would push across it, they would see the glass, and the local diggers noticed it, and they started picking bottles up. Now, that was a good thing and a bad thing. It allowed for a lot of people to know where the stuff was, but at the same time, with progress on the roads and the buildings and everything, it made it to where we can't dig there any longer. Mm-hmm. So we've been narrowed down to a smaller area, and a lot of the areas we dig, I'll be honest with you, were passed down via word of mouth because of my dad and his reputation in the past of being a digger. Bottle diggers are kind of like...
Oh, I lost you, Brandon, if you can hear me. Gypsy, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
You lost him as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Brandon, if you can hear us, we've lost you, buddy. Oh, man. Wonder what happened here. Let me see. Sorry, guys. We'll get him back on. Let me see if we can get him back on. I apologize for that. I'm not sure what happened.
Hey, guys.
There you are. Sorry about that. We lost you. You were talking about how your was passed down from your dad and on the locations of them from the construction and how it's come down. But continue. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I'm not sure what happened there. I might have dropped signal. We're in a bad rainstorm, kind of heading through this way.
Okay.
That being said, Yeah, we do search for our own dumps. Currently, we are in the midst of working on several big projects. Without giving too much away, we've narrowed one down to a very small radius, and we're to the point of probing lots. So what that means is we'll go find the vacant lots, and we're probing lots, and we're pretty close to what we think is going to be a major breakthrough. But there is a lot of things that you can put together. Basically, we're being amateur, if you will. We're being amateur detectives in a sense of prowling through old newspapers, prowling through Sanborn maps, really prowling through everything that may have just a little bit of a hint of where the dump may have been at the time.
Right.
Our target age here is because Birmingham wasn't incorporated till 1881, is really between 1880 and 1925. Those Hutch bottles, the Coca-Cola Hutch bottles, were discontinued and put out of use probably around 1905, 1906. So preferably, if we could find a dump that's right around that area, 1905, 1906 or before, then we have the real good potential of finding those really valuable bottles. But
Absolutely.
there again, one of the things that we always think about is where the creeks are, where the low-lying land is, all of that kind of stuff. And that all comes into play of where the city dump may have been at the time.
Yeah. Now, I know in Ohio, the dumps were always along creeks or rivers. Is that pretty safe bet where you guys are at, or is it different?
99% of the time, you will be next to a creek or a big embankment.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is, I mean, they did it because the land was unusable. I mean, why would you put a dump, a city dump, basically, on a piece of land that would be usable or developed? Mm-hmm. So they would always put it on a creek bank because usually it's kind of swampy land, or they would put it on that embankment. They just pour it off the embankment, the trash, the garbage wagons would. I mean, and the other thing is depending on your town, you can look up the way of the prevailing winds, and they would always put the dump on the side of the town where it wouldn't blow the stench into the town. So that can really narrow stuff down for you.
Oh, wow. That's a good idea. I never thought about that.
Very interesting.
But yeah. Gypsy, you've had to come along bottle dumps as much as you're on the rivers, have you?
Yeah, several alongside a river that I metal detect a lot. In fact, I've got a couple videos. Actually, I've got about 3 or 4 videos where I'm digging in old dumps. And one of them, not too long ago, I was digging in the dump, mainly looking for bottles, of course, but I found 2 really cool tokens while I was digging, and a buckle.
I seen that video. Really sorry. I knew you've dug in dumps. I apologize. I seen that video. Yeah.
And then there's another dump I was actually thinking today I really wanted to go to, but I didn't get a chance to. Had other stuff going on. But there's a dump, and like Brandon said, and those dumps are right along a major river, not far at all from where I live. But there's also a creek. The same creek, I don't know if y'all watched my very last video that I just uploaded where I find a lot of fossils. Closer to the older part of where that creek kind of starts and flows down where some of the first settlement of that town that started not far from that creek, I discovered another bottle dump, and I do have a video, I think, where me and my son did some sifting there. But most of the bottles I've dug in that are broken. From what I understand, I was out metal detecting in the creek one day, and a fellow told me about the dump. And he said that, I think there's, a lot of people in the area that dig bottles have already discovered it. But just after, Brandon, I find Brandon, their videos very inspiring because, they dig super deep. But this particular dump that I'm talking about is right off a cliff that goes, they just literally must have backed up and just dumped off the cliff.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of on the side of a cliff where you're digging. So I don't know how deep anyone dug in there. And then you hit bedrock. So I'm going to have to do a little more investigation on that.
One of the things that... Oh, go ahead, Brandon. I'm sorry.
I was going to say the best place to start at an embankment is the bottom. So if they're digging up towards the top, not that they won't find anything good, but think about it. When they initially first started, everything was rolling to the bottom.
Right.
So
Exactly.
go to the bottom and dig a hole down there and try it. I mean, I know we dig 10 and 15 foot deep holes, and we catch a lot of flack on the safety side of things. But in all seriousness, most dumps are not going to be that deep in the U.S. So most places it's going to be 5 to 8 feet, something like that. So it's always worth going and trying, or at least taking a probe with you.
And one of the biggest mistakes from newbies that I see, and I'm sure you'll agree, Brandon, they'll find where a dump site was, and they'll say, "Oh, it's no good. This stuff is from the 50s or the 40s or whatever." You got to dig, because the newer stuff's going to be on top. If they were dumping in the 50s, there's a good chance they were dumping there for a long time.
Yeah, usually like the dump that we're at ended in about 35, 36. And by the time we get to the bottom, we're probably around 1908 to 1910 is one of our main dumps. So, there's about a 25-year span there. You're right. That newer stuff's definitely at the top. The better stuff's going to be at the bottom. And a lot of times, if they're not seasoned bottle diggers, they do not know. They really don't know what they're missing. They may get to the top, dig it, and think they're done, and they're missing all the good stuff on the bottom. And that's something that we've ran into is people be like, "Oh man, this area is dug out," and we'll go in there and they never reach the bottom. They missed all of the good stuff.
Right. What would you real quick? What's your YouTube? Bill Marsh is asking. Let's go and get it posted.
It's Adventure Archaeology.
Great.
So Brandon, just real quick, how long has it been since you started your YouTube channel? And I know a lot of people here don't know. I think we're about to delve into some metal detecting and talk about metal detecting too. So I'm curious. I know you said your father was in the bottle digging. Did he ever do any metal detecting?
He did. He was probably one of the first in our area to start metal detecting, actually, in the mid-'80s as well. So I picked that up from him. He still has his original detector from 1985. And he is incredibly distraught. He's incredibly distraught that it doesn't work anymore.
What is it? What
detector was that?
It was a Garrett. Oh man, I forget. It was one of the green tanks. That's the best way I can describe it. But
Right.
he had it forever, and he loved that thing. But my dad was the old school kind of digger that whenever he doesn't believe in digging plugs even. He would take a screwdriver, and if he couldn't hit the coin with the end of his screwdriver, then he didn't pinpoint good enough. And he makes fun of all of us that dig these plugs now, and he just thinks that is just unreal. Because to him, he would hit a silver coin with a screwdriver and not think anything about it. he's really old school.
Wow.
That's great. That is great.
About what age were you, Brandon, when you picked up a detector?
I'd say probably growing up, we'd go about one time a year. We weren't doing it a ton. Dad had detected a ton of areas, and he started his own business and stuff whenever I was younger, so he was really too busy to do it often. But he would take me out and about, usually once a year. But growing up, the majority of what we did was arrowhead hunting. I grew up from the time I was, 7 or 8, walking cotton fields and peanut fields looking for arrowheads all the way till I got married. And I didn't pick a detector up until about 10 years ago, again, that I actually bought for myself. And my wife is the one that talked me into that, actually. So.
Wow.
Oh, cool.
That's a good one.
Now, does she detect as well?
She does. She actually loves it as much as I do, if not more. There again, with a 3-year-old, she doesn't get out as much as I do. But as soon as my daughter's old enough that we can shorten a shaft up on a detector and she can swing it, I plan on having them both out there with me.
Perfect. Yeah, same here. My wife will actually, she's got slings and stuff, and she's gone out with me and had the baby but he's getting too big for her. She's not a very big girl, and he's getting big, so her back starts hurting pretty quick now. But Before long, he'll be walking good, and we'll be getting her back out as well. So something I know you haven't done too much of it, but I'd like to touch on is privy digging.
Yeah.
Now, how do you like doing those?
The privies in our area are a little less abundant than they are in the northern area, because they had down here what were called privy closets. And they actually had like slide out drawers on their privies that the garbage wagon would come by and haul away.
Oh.
So all of the good stuff wasn't necessarily buried in a hole. Now, some of the poorer areas actually had the dug holes that they used.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not a good combination. You don't want to dig in a poor house's privy hole, because they couldn't even afford a soda.
Right.
The South was spent. The South was spent after the Civil War, and really they didn't make a comeback till after World War I, which was after all the good bottles. So I mean, it's kind of a catch-22. We know how to do it. We know how to find them. We found them, and we've dug parts of them. We've never had great luck with it. We've had much better luck with digging dumps. Is the main reason that we've done it. Now, in other areas like in the north, I mean, that's all I would be doing is privy digging. I mean, it's easier, it's smaller, more compact. I mean, why not?
Right. Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to be in some really good privies. I'm like you, I haven't done a bunch, but, I've done a little bit. I've done a handful of them, and I've done a handful of bottle dumps, and they're both fun. And, I know this isn't metal detecting, but for you people out there listening, there's other treasures out there, that can be found without a metal detector. I often, I see people who, I think all of this, whether it's metal detecting, bottle hunting, gems, gold, you can buy a gold panning kit if you're in a place where there's gold. I mentioned insulators. It's all in the spirit of adventure and getting out and finding treasure. And, you see people all the time that they want a metal detector. They want a $1,000 metal detector, and they can't afford it. I got a couple solutions for you. Number one, you could buy something cheaper, go hit the parks and dig up enough clad in a year that you could buy whatever detector you want. Or go out and look for bottles. Go dig a bottle dump and stuff. And, that's my solution. There's treasure everywhere.
That's so true. And, that brings me to thinking, how much stuff over the years I've dug found, just not even metal detecting, anything from surface finds. Brandon was talking about airheads. I don't know how many times, I bet you every one of us have done it. We've been out metal detecting, and we find arrowheads. We find some really cool rocks. My last hunt turned into a fossil hunt instead of a metal detecting hunt. So that's a really good point, Mike, and I'm glad you bring that up, because I think that, of course, some of us, some of us may be more into coin shooting, or more into bottle hunting, or more into one aspect of treasure hunting. But I mean, I think, I'm curious, Brandon, you and your bottle digging buddy and your wife as well, when you're in these dumps, and I know a lot of times you bring stuff to sift with, is there ever what's some of your favorite items that you might have found in the dump that aren't bottles?
Well, I'll put it this way. We found 5 barber dimes last year, none of which were with a detector. They were all in the bottle dump. We found them. We found old tokens. We found porcelain signs. We found glass eyeballs. I mean, like glass eyes.
Wow.
I mean, we found. I've actually found a set of false teeth. Porcelain door pushes. I mean, pretty much. I mean, it was a city dump. Anything that could have got thrown away probably did. And a lot of stuff gets thrown away on accident. I don't know if y'all are like me, but I think we've accidentally thrown away a TV remote a time or two. I mean, there's just certain things there's just certain things that may get thrown away on accident that you run across, like the dimes and stuff. I have my theory on that, because that was a lot of money 100 years ago. A dime was. I think that maybe they were lost in a pair of pants and got the pair of pants thrown away. We found a ton of World War I buttons. I mean, old buttons are a ton of them in a dump. But yeah, that's some of the better stuff that we found for sure. It's always fun to see the smalls at the end of the day, because usually they'll add up to more than the big stuff for sure.
Real quick, I want to touch on something, and maybe you can help me with this, but Bill's, let me get back to it. What is Brandon's take or ideas on finding a privy in a plowed field? Short of probing or shoveling, they're hard to locate. Bill, I have talked to several privy diggers, and several, but I've known a few pretty well, and they have no desire to digging them up in a field like at a single house. If you're asking for the location that I think you're asking for, there is a gold mine out there. And what I would say, I know there's aerials for that area, and I would get the early aerials and I would look at those and I would try to step it off and get an idea and take a probe. You got to probe in a yard anyhow if you're going to dig a privy. I mean, you got to probe. You're not going to know. Rarely are you going to know unless you see, where the ground sunk in a little bit. But if you're talking about where I think you're talking about, you need to get on that. But as far as like old country houses, I know guys who have done it, and they say stick in town, stay in town. That's where you're going to find them. You're just not going to, I've done them. That's what I've always heard. I've tried them. I've done them. I don't find anything. They threw them out in the creek. They threw them out in the field because they're out in the country. I don't know, because I would still be willing to try one, but what's your take on that, Brandon?
I mean, I'm kind of in the same aspect as you, in the sense that if there's not an old house foundation there, you are literally flying blind. So if you could pick up even an old aerial from the 40s, 30s, or 40s, and there was still a foundation of some sort there, then that would give you a point of orientation to start. Without a starting point, I mean, you're really, there's nothing to go from. But if you've got the foundation and where it was, and you can get close to it, then pretty much you can kind of circle out about 50 foot from the foundation. And, even if it's foundation stones, just something to start with to have an orientation point. But about 50 feet from the back door usually is where the privy was. Now, you may not be able to tell what's front or back or side to side if the house was square, obviously, but you can probably get around all four sides of the house and kind of probe in a line, and if you have to, spiral outward. But they usually wouldn't put a privy very far from the house, because back then, think about it, who would want to walk to the bathroom in the middle of the night in 20-degree weather, or if it's raining, or if it's snowing? They kept it, it's a lot closer than what we think, sometimes even closer than 50 feet. But without that orientation point, you really are flying blind.
Yeah. Bill, and I know what Bill's saying, like, he knows where the house site was. He does a lot of field hunting like I used to when I lived in Ohio. And when you hunt that, you can tell by the iron debris where the house was, at least real close. But he's talking about a 1730 site. Most likely that was wood lined. It seems like, at least in Ohio, I don't know. Early 1800s, they were mostly wood lined. 1730s, I don't know. It's probably, the chances of finding that, Bill, is probably needle in a haystack. But if you got into some 1700s bottles, it could be well worth your effort. And probing, you wanna, when you use a good probe, you'll hear it. You'll feel it on your tip. That's part of the reason they use spring steel. But you'll hit voids. You'll actually hear or feel when you're getting into glass and stuff. You'll hear it. I don't remember. You don't necessarily hear it. You can hear it though, but you'll definitely feel it. And
you'll hear it. You'll hear it, because if you're using a good probe, you're using a hollow handle probe, and what that's going to do is it's going to let the sound reverberate up the shaft of the probe into the handle. And if you hit glass, it should make a clear tink noise. If you hit a brick, it's going to be more of a thud or a rock. So you are listening for a sound as well as a feel. But, a lot of old-timers will tell you that you should be able to take the probe with one finger and push it down. Now, sometimes that's true, not all the time. But if you put the probe down and you can take your index finger and just push it till it all the way goes to the handle, I mean, that's a really good inclination. You're in the right spot.
Right.
But if this field was plowed, depending on the depth of it, there should be scattered glass where they plowed it. I mean, I would think too.
Yeah. And look for an indentation. Bill, I've actually found where I believe privies are when I'm in the field. Look for a little indentation. They're usually 4 foot by 4 foot, 5 foot, something like that. You know, you're walking along metal detecting, and all of a sudden it's like there's a little indentation here. Oh, this had to have been the privy. You know, I mean, what else would cause that? Because I mean, that's gonna, over time, that's gonna sink, because when they filled it in,
or outhouse,
yeah, because when they filled it back in, it you know, it settles more there because it's been dug. So, you know, that might be something. But man, a needle in the haystack. But that early, that really might be worth trying to get into. But it's going to take you time. But you know where the house site is because of the iron, I suspect, and you know, kind of get in the center. I would say get in the center of it and just start probing each side. Out the back, go out the back. And like he said, they didn't go far. They didn't want to go far. And, you know, it's middle of winter and you wake up in the middle of the night and you got to use the bathroom. They weren't real far. So we have to get into them before it's time to plant. Yeah. So, I've never dug in a field. Everybody said, it ain't worth it. Any of the guys that I know that are hardcore, privy diggers just never got into the fields. But the one that you and I, the one that I'm thinking, the other one, I'm telling you, that could be a gold mine. Because although that town was there a long time. There's privies all over that place. I guarantee it. He's one of the places he's talking about was a town up until like the 40s, but it started around 1800. And they moved it because it's in the floodplain, and there's been so much good stuff come out of that field that I guarantee those privies, being that it was actually a town, there's a lot there. There's no doubt in my mind. I'm sorry, Brandon. I'm just talking. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. I'm enjoying listening.
Well, that's not how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to enjoy listening to you. So let me give you the floor again. Well, let's go into metal detecting some more. So is it okay to say what you told us before show?
Yeah, absolutely.
About, so Brandon is, a team Fisher now, right? Again,
yes,
this
correct.
year. And,
Yes,
tell us about that. How'd that come about?
I guess it was, January 2018 is whenever I came on to basically First Texas team. Most anybody that knows about metal detecting knows that First Texas owns Fisher, Technetics, as well as Bounty Hunter. And I actually applied for I was approached about the Fisher side of being a Fisher team member. And amazingly, like you said, bottle digging doesn't necessarily tie directly in with metal detecting, but that's actually what drew Fisher to me was the fact that I did bottle digging. They liked the fact that I kind of specialized in a different area than a lot of people did, as well as the crossover factor in marketing, which I think was a good idea. A lot of people that are interested in me digging bottles may be interested in metal detecting or vice versa. So they watched my channel. They enjoyed what I did. They knew that I was a family man, and they knew that I wasn't going to put out content that would be not good for them. And that being said, it led into me being a team member in 2018, and I will be rejoining their team this year in 2019. Excited to do a little bit of travel detecting this year. I hope to be in New Hampshire for the bone hunt at the end of April, which is going to be a big deal. That should be fun. Maybe Gypsy, will you be there?
I haven't heard on that one yet. That would be
okay,
fun if we both got to be there.
Yeah, I'm excited to go up to it. It's the only one that's kind of set in stone right now, which that'll be fun to get on some colonial areas because there again down here in the South, there's just not an abundance of them like there are up there. So I'm really looking forward. I'm really looking forward to that. I would love to find a pre-1800s coin. That's really a bucket lister for me.
Oh, great. Now, so what detectors do you use? Like what in the Fisher lineup do you use?
I actually have a F44, a F19, an F75, and an F75 Plus. The Plus is currently my go-to machine. It's a lot of people talk bad about the fact that it's a little chattery around power lines and stuff. I think that people haven't figured out that that's because of how powerful it is. I mean, it's a super powerful machine. And as far as field hunting goes, I mean, that power is really great. I mean, to get the depth that machine, the potential that it has for depth is amazing. So it's really my go-to. I enjoy it. I use it for primarily coin hunting and sidewalk strips. That's what I do primarily. So I'm shooting for silver a lot of times. I don't do the Civil War hunts or anything like that. I was privileged to go with Heath and Scott over to their Spanish-American War site here a couple months ago, and I enjoyed that thoroughly, digging some relics and some cool stuff from that. That was really neat.
Now, I think Heath often uses a T2, doesn't he? Or used to?
Yeah, he used to. I'm pretty sure. I think he still has one.
Yeah. I know I've seen some videos of him using a T2 and stuff, and I know a lot of Civil War guys who just swear by those T2s and say they're deep, work good in the mineralized ground, and all kinds of stuff. I hear a lot of good things about them. Well, now, you said you've got an F19 and an F44.
Yes. I covered the basis because of my wife detecting with me as well. We started her with an F44, and it was actually a little more difficult for her to learn than the F19. So we actually ended up going to an F19 with her, with the elliptical coil. Sorry, my daughter just walked in on me.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. Tell her to say hi.
She's 3 years old and she's everywhere.
Yeah, it happens.
She really is. I can't wait till I can put her in these holes and have her digging with me because she'll have a blast. But that being said, so my wife ended up with the F19. She had a really good time using it because of that smaller coil. It made it really, really easy to use in trashy areas. With the larger coils, obviously it doesn't separate as well. And sadly, here in Alabama, we are in one of the trashiest areas. I mean, people are litter bugs, and doing sidewalk strips, it really makes it hard to cipher through the trash for sure. That's been where the majority of our silvers came from, so we can't really complain too much.
Right. I like the entry level Fishers a lot. I think they're very underrated. The Fisher Technetics, one and the same. I mean, they are different detectors, but same company, and they really are. They're underrated. That little F22 is a heck of a detector, really good detector. And I like those concentric coils. I think they have concentric coils on them, like the F22 does, and I'm assuming the F19. I'm a person, I like concentric coils. I think they got their place. So, what's some?
Yeah, I mean
go ahead.
The F44 does. I mean, it's definitely it has its place in the world for sure. I'll go with you on that one.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. The F22. I mean, that's a heck of a good all-around detector. I think, it has that iron audio. You can take that thing to a park or a house and you can hunt with it successfully, but you can take it out field hunting and be pretty successful out in the fields with it too. And that's a really affordable detector.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So what's some of your favorite metal detecting finds?
Well, like I said, our area is not super old. So, 1881 being the start of the town, there was a few places before that, but doing sidewalk strips, we're very limited on the silver that we find. Occasional Indian head pennies, a lot of mercury dimes, but probably rings are our best. You know what I mean? When I find a ring, I really get really excited about that. But probably the best find that I've ever made was a search and recovery. In all honesty, somebody had lost a family heirloom, and I was privileged enough to be able to find it for them. It was a second-generation gold ring, and right when I thought that I was about to give up, thankfully we were able to find it. But yeah, rings are probably our favorite finds. Me and my wife have both done well with that. About 2 or 3 years ago, I had a 2 or 3 ring day. I had a Walking Liberty and 3 mercury dimes, a couple rosies, and a couple Washington quarters that were all silver, all in one day. And that's been the day for me to beat, for sure. But that's the majority of what we dig is more of the modern silver, sadly.
Yeah. I didn't know you guys were that new. I thought Mobile, right? Mobile?
Yeah, Mobile is older in the south. That's about 3.5 hours south of where I live.
Huh. I didn't know that. Yeah, Mobile's old, right? So I'm surprised you guys are so much newer. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, Birmingham is a lot newer, and I actually, to get a little more in depth, I actually live in. He just said we beat Scott on Barber. He can testify to how hard it is to find silver, let alone old silver in Alabama. I mean, it is. I mean, it's ridiculous hard.
Right.
I mean, like you said, Scott had been after a barber dime for I don't know how long before he found one this year. So I mean, it's just that hard.
Yeah, moving from Ohio to Texas was a real awakening to me, because it is so difficult to find silver here in Texas. And up in Ohio, there's parks I can take you to, and it would be nothing for us to each find 3 or 4 silvers at a park. And there's
Right.
a lot of detector stuff that way, but there was so much silver lost. There's a fairgrounds I detected for a couple years. It was right down the road from me. I found over 40 silver coins out of that fairgrounds. And so then when we get somebody from the South, and now me, like, people don't understand when I say how hard it is to find silver here in Texas, and they kind of find it a little bit unbelievable, and it's different. They did, I don't know if they didn't have the money and trash. It was so funny when you mentioned, the litter bugs, because every park I go to, every place I've been to, yards, parks, there's so much trash. It blows me away.
I kind of laugh at the Hoover boys at the end of their videos where they say, take all the trash with you, leave it behind. They show their trash. I was thinking, man, if we hunted a field that size down here, we'd fill the entire bed of a truck up with trash. I mean, that's just how bad. I mean, it's ridiculous. I wish we could take it all, but I don't own a dump truck. So
Right. Yeah. So I get where you're coming from completely, because moving here to Texas, I mean, I thought I was something, because I could go out and find over 100. I mostly relic hunted and in the fields and stuff, and you don't find as much silver, but it was nothing to find 100 silver, while I'm waiting for my fields, for the crops to come out of the fields from fall to spring. And, I'd go out and hit parks and schools and houses, and, I averaged probably 100 and some silver coins a year, always a little bit over 100. And then you move to Texas and just trying to get one, I'm just trying to get, I'd be happy with a couple a year. Where they at, man? I don't know. It's different.
That's the way I feel, Mike, here in Texas, where I know that when I travel to the West Texas area, I found more silver in the West Texas area than I do kind of this area that you and I live in. I don't know why that is.
That's weird.
What part of Texas are y'all from?
I'm south. I'm about an hour south of Fort Worth.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, I mean, really, here in Alabama, and I guess it could apply to Texas as well. I mean, like I said earlier, after the Civil War, I mean, we were broke. I mean, broke. So if you lost a barber dime, you were losing that week's groceries. You know what I mean? At that time,
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really, it puts things in perspective. In the North, they still had an abundance of money. They were more well off. Plus, it's older up there as well. So, I mean, they really just have an unfair advantage through and through. If you get above Kentucky, things get better.
Yeah. And, when you're talking about older, I bet if I sit down and counted my dimes, I bet I have more Barber dimes than I do Mercs and Rosies put together. I used to dig Barbers so much I got tired of them. I mean, I was literally digging more Barbers, than I was Mercs and Rosies. It is a difference for those in the North. It's different. It's different down here. But
yeah, I think a lot of people do take that for granted, though. I mean, we would kill to go out and find a few Barber dimes in a day metal detecting. I mean, it's just not something that's easy to do down here. I mean, if things were different after the Civil War, I think things would have been different for sure. There would have been more money and stuff flowing down here. But that's also a determining factor of why I dig so many bottles, because that is one thing that everybody bought because they were addicted to it to some extent because of the caffeine and cocaine and everything they put in it back then.
Right. Hey, Brandon, I remember watching one of your videos. I think it's been over a year ago. I think y'all were digging near a dump, but you walked down, to the river, and you did kind of a river walk where you're walking in the water and you find a bottle. But I'm curious, do you ever do any kind of river metal detecting, or is that something you might want to try in the future?
I would love to river detect. And, I mean, there again, though, the abundance of litter in the creeks around here is just, it is ridiculous. I like to kayak a good bit, so I would know the areas that wouldn't be trashy. And one of the creeks that I kayak in our area is called Valley Creek. And I kayaked last year about an hour or two south of the main road and hit a bend in the creek that's about, if I had to guess, probably 80 foot wide. And the entire span of the creek was nothing but 20-ounce bottles. I mean, it's just that bad. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
That's sad.
So have you ever thought about magnet fishing? I mean, with so much debris and stuff in there, I'd be curious what's in there.
I have. I did a little bit of magnet fishing last year on my channel. I did 1 or 2 videos. Brute Magnetics actually sent me a magnet to use, or a couple magnets. I had a 350-pound magnet and I had a 500-pound magnet. And I pulled a couple knives out. I pulled a couple other things out. It's really, really fun. It's one of those things where you don't even have to think about it. It's not like detecting or anything. It's really, really low-key. You can just kind of go out and relax. And
that's what I'm really about doing more this year, especially you mentioned kayaks. I've been wanting to buy some kayaks, and I've had magnets for quite a while now, and I just got another Brute 500-pound Brute Magnetics also, besides I have another one. But anyway, I've done a few videos on it, found some knives and fishing gear and stuff like that, but I think, if you go out on kayaks already, bring your metal detector, bring your magnet, and do some kayaking to some of those areas. That might make some great videos.
Yeah, I would love to do some dive detecting. I actually spoke with Fisher about getting a CZ21, which is arguably one of the best diving detectors on the market. I would love to get into to the beach. I'd love to go out to what I call the second sandbar area. And I don't know how it is in the Gulf anyways. There's usually always a second sandbar that's a little further out, and it usually catches all of the debris from ships and different things that roll out there. And just so happened we were in Panama City. This has been about 5 years ago, and I kid you not, we were walking to the beach and we were disgusted because the seaweed had all come into the shore. I mean, it was just the most dense seaweed you'd ever seen. And I got to looking, and there was an older couple out there, and they had these bags on their back, and they were knee deep in this seaweed. And finally, the guy came back in and I asked him what he was doing, and he said that like one time a year, the way the tides change, everything from that second sandbar gets washed into the shore. And as he was saying that, he reached down and picked up a $20 bill. And I was like, man, maybe I need to get out there. So we got out there and we found $140 in $20 bills. And we pulled out a money clip. We started finding goggles and Oakleys and, just all kinds of stuff. And I was like, man, I wish I knew what time of year that was, because that's been 5 or 6 years ago, because I would go back just to be able to hunt that.
Yeah. When I lived in Galveston, that was the thing. I'm so short, I'm 5'2", so usually out of past the first sandbar is about as far as I could get, without being, drowning. I did a lot of surf hunting, but that's what we would wait for, is the minus tides, wait for the moon cycle, find out when the minus tides, not just the low tides, and try to get out to that second sandbar. And man, I wound up maybe with a seven ring in one day. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, that's crazy. Really beach hunting, especially in the Gulf, is something that a lot of people do, but I don't think anybody's really been out deep. and in the deeper areas, at least in the beaches that we go to. And I see a lot of these guys that are on YouTube now. They're making videos about finding Oakleys and GoPros and phones and getting millions of views. So I guess it just depends on what you identify as treasure.
Yeah, right.
Right.
That's great.
Well, yeah, if you get that Fisher, what is it, 71? The water?
Oh, the CZ21.
CZ21, that's what it is. Yeah, I actually used one, Fisher CZ21, in one of my videos when I went to Florida. You have to look back. I think it's from the first summer when I started my channel, and I used one in Florida in the surf in the water there, a Fisher CZ21, and it's a really good machine. For years I used the Pulse Induction, the PI Sea Hunter. I still have that machine. Found some of my best rings, with that one. But yeah, you definitely need to get that water machine and get out there and do a little shallow diving there.
Well, I'd like to be a certified diver. I mean, there's a creek here in our area that used to be used as a city dump at the turn of the century, and there's some really cool bottles from that city that have elks embossed on them. And really, all of those bottles that have been found in this one creek. So I usually walk that creek in the areas that are knee deep, but there's pockets that are 8, 10, 12 foot deep. And I was thinking about getting certified just to be able to dive those deeper pockets for bottles, because I think that would be really neat to find that stuff. Plus, I don't think I've ever seen anybody that's really diving on YouTube for bottles. So that would be pretty neat.
Right.
I'll tell you something,
really awesome.
Something to look into, and I don't think you gotta do anything to do it. I talked to a guy. If I don't have my facts straight, I apologize. It's been a lot of years. I knew a guy in Ohio that did a lot of beach hunting. One year he spent, I want to say, upwards of $2,000 on a hookah system, which is just, it's a motor that sits on a little raft and you dive off of it with an airline. And in months, and just a few months, he more than paid for it by going out to lakes, freshwater lakes, and diving down, going out past where guys could detect, up to their neck. So he would go out just past that and do it, and he'd found enough rings in just a few months to more than pay for his whole hookah system. So that's an idea as well, something you might look into, a hookah system.
That's a great idea. I've actually thought of that. I've been talking about maybe doing that for a while, and what I thought about is if I had a buddy, hint, Mike, that doesn't want to get in the rivers.
You ain't getting this fat guy in Texas rivers with the snakes. No deal.
I'll have to fly up there to see Brandon then.
Yeah.
But I've thought about, instead of getting scuba certified, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and get scuba certified anyway. But I wouldn't mind investing, and if I had somebody to go in with me on a hookah system. And the river here where I metal detect in the summer, the Guadalupe River, and I find a lot of rings and other stuff, like Brandon mentioned a while ago, the other river treasure, that we find, GoPros and cell phones. I can't believe how many cell phones I found last year in the river. But those deep pockets that a lot of people won't go into because it is too deep, just to do some shallow diving. And I don't go in there with my metal detector, but I would love to hook up a hookah system or, get certified and wonder what all's in those pockets,
Right. Or those just out of reach for the detectors that detects up to his neck,
Right.
And that guy, it blew me away that he, more than paid for it with just, I think it was total just a few dives, just a few times out, and he'd already paid for his whole system. And that's pretty incredible to me. But I don't know. I'm looking forward. You ought to come up Wednesday and go hunt with me.
This Wednesday?
Yeah.
Or next Wednesday.
No, this Wednesday, and we'll go water hunt. We'll go beach hunt.
Oh, man. I wish I could. I'll be gone
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
the Garrett.
I know. I mean, I understand the rest of the Garrett team's more important than me. I get it. It's fine, Gypsy. Yeah. I don't have, like I said, I don't have high hopes because I do know it. This place is hunting. Our beaches here most of them are big gravel, like stone, and you just can't you can't. Stuff doesn't sink, and if it does, you got to dig through the rocks and stuff. So I'm excited to at least be on sand here come Wednesday. I'm excited for that.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I hope you find something really awesome. I hope you find some rings, though.
Me too. I'm
Time for some gold.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping anyhow. But what else? I think we touched on about everything, didn't we?
Just about everything. I want to ask Brandon just a few more quick questions.
Go ahead. We ain't no rush. I'm running out of stuff to ask.
So, Brandon, you said, your dad started metal detecting and he started with a Garrett. Tell us about your first detector and then kind of how it evolved into the Fisher thing.
Well, when I first started, we started with an Ace 250, and we moved to an AT Pro, and my wife took over the Ace 250. And the crazy part is, we talked a little bit before the show about the Ace series versus the F series with Fisher. And, the Ace series, it did well for my wife. I mean, she found a ton of silver, and a lot of times she was giving me a run for the money with the AT Pro. But what kind of evolved me into getting into the F75 was I bought the AT Pro kind of on a whim of I'm going to start water detecting. And I never did. Because the creeks were so trashy. So I thought, well, what's kind of in the same price bracket as an AT Pro that's got more depth, more sensitivity, more, what I could use on the land, and that's where I landed on the F75. And
right.
I'm not knocking on the AT Pro because it's a great machine as well. But that's what led me to the F75 was I wanted that extra sensitivity that a lot of people complain about with power lines. But, my thing is you can run that thing wide open on the gain whenever you're out in the field. But if you're in an area where you're close to power lines, obviously you got to turn it down. But if you run that thing wide open, man, it is ridiculous on the depth that you'll get.
One of the things I've always heard about the F75 is, and I find this pretty common amongst just detectorists and different detectors, is they think to get depth, you got to crank them up. A lot of guys even run them unstable. I have no problem turning a detector down. And I've heard people say the F75, the T2, that you can run that thing down to like 30 and still get really great depth out of it. And I think you get a lot of complaints because of that. Guys think they got to keep it up there at 70 and 80 or whatever and run it unstable, and then they get all the chatter. No, turn it down, crank it down.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Take it on down a notch. I mean, I like running mine at 70 in the field. I never run it at full. But really, in an area that's like a yard or something, I'll usually stay between 40 and 50. Unless it's just highly, highly littered with power lines and air conditioners and it's a really tight area. Then you may have to go lower than that. But, I mean, on the grand scale of things, that little bit of sensitivity that you lose isn't dropping your depth by very much at all. And that would probably be a good video for me to do, is show you the depth comparison with the sensitivity down and up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That'd be great.
Most of these people, I think, are wrong when they run them chattery. I feel like you get, the more stable your detector is, the better off you are. It's we had somebody on one of the shows said, running it with chatters like, where your detector's unstable is like running, your brights in fog. Turn them down. You can see better, and I think that's a good analogy. And people tend to, crank their sensitivity up to a point where they'll there's one guy out there, I'm not going to say names, that all his videos is just, his T2's just chattering, and he's out in fields. He's in fields in the woods, and it's like, turn it down, man. You're hurting yourself. You really are. You're hurting yourself. Yeah. That's my opinion. It's just mine. But
well, if you're trying to get that depth and you're so concerned about it, you probably need to be using a PI machine anyway.
Right.
But let's face it.
Right. Not everybody can afford a PI machine, though. I get that. But yeah, you know, most of the stuff isn't found that deep anyhow. When you start running it unstable, you're hurting yourself, I believe. And I think a lot of people make that mistake with the T2 and F75.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right.
What else you got, Gypsy? What other questions you got for him? Putting you on the spot.
Just, I guess my other question was, so Brandon, what are your plans for your YouTube channel in the future? And then now that I know for a while, Fisher was sending a pinpointer for you to give away once a month. And then you said Fisher's really got some good stuff planned for you this year. I'm just curious, how's your this new year looking for you?
This year is going to be a good one. Like I said, I'm going to be doing some traveling this year for Fisher, which is a big deal to me, to be able to go into places that I've never been able to detect before. But the F-Pulse giveaways, we did end those at the beginning of the year. That was really a marketing pitch to help get them out into the field and into people's hands because nobody was really using the Tech Point or the F-Pulse. We wanted to put them in people's hands and let them be able to do reviews and talk about them and say how great they are. You know what I mean? What better way to sell a product than to let somebody use it? And that was the thing was we put it in, I don't know, I think I did 10 giveaways in a row. So we put 10 pinpointers on my side out and 10 pinpointers out on the Tech Point side and put over 20 pinpointers into the market from First Texas on the house to different detectorists that watch YouTube to allow them to be able to use them. So far, I've heard nothing but rave reviews. I've used mine now. I had it before it was even released and used mine for all year last year pretty much. And, I mean, it has never gave me a problem. And it's a great, great pinpointer. On the other side of things, with being a member of Fisher like I am right now, I am the only team member currently for Fisher. So there's 3 or 4 for Technetics, and there's a couple other guys out there. But for the Fisher side, I'm the only guy that's really helping promote for the Fisher side of things. That means that when new products are released, that I'll be the one that you see the video with the new products being released for 2019. And take that for what you will, but I'll just drop a little hint there. How about that?
That's fantastic.
No, it's funny you mentioned the pinpointers because, I've only heard, like you, great things about them, but I don't hear a lot of people using them, and I've wondered why. Matter of fact, I was talking pinpointers the other day with somebody, and they were asking me what they think they should get, and I'd ran through a couple, and I'd actually forgot about the F-Pulse and stuff, and I said, you know what, I've heard really good things about this one too. You need to at least check this one out, and I'm curious, why isn't that more popular when all I've heard is good things? You know, it's kind of a curious thing.
Well, here's the thing about the F-Pulse is, I mean, and the Tech Point, I think that it was just severely underrated from the start. When people think about pinpointers, they automatically think about Garrett for some reason. You know, you got the Garrett Carrot, you had the Pro Pointer before that. I mean, and everybody knew Garrett, and they made a really nice market out of what they had being waterproof. And I think people don't realize that the Fisher and Technetics pinpointers are waterproof. I think that's the number one thing. I think that Fisher probably won't like me saying this. I think they ought to put on that box real big that it's waterproof. That might help out a little bit. But the other thing is, is just not as many people were using them. They hadn't been in the market as long. And like I said, I think we tried to curb that a little bit by putting them in people's hands for free. I mean, I think that that's going to help them out this year, as well as some bundling packages that they have going on right now. I think when you buy the F75 Plus, you get an F-Pulse with it. I mean, there's a couple other good deals going on out there that pretty much you come out really good and get an awesome pinpointer with it as well. I like the Red Killer personally. I feel like Iron Man every time I use it.
That's funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've been a huge fan of the Garrett pinpointers, but I gotta be honest with you, and maybe it'll take some getting used to. I'm not as big a fan of the Garrett Carrot as the original Pro Pointer. And the reason is what I struggle with is I'll go to turn it off, and you if you just click it once, it doesn't turn off. If you click it and hold it, you got to click it and hold it, but it's like if you hold it a split second too long, you go into the setup. And I keep finding myself doing that and getting aggravated, Gypsy. It works great. Don't get me wrong. It works awesome, but I hate that. I wish there was almost a switch or something or a third button somewhere where, that's where you adjust it. Cause man, I do that like every hunt. I'll do that 3 or 4 times still. And I probably got 20 hours on the darn thing. And I'm still just like, man, I'm tired.
Yeah. Getting used to, and I think part of the big reason behind that design, though, with the one button and all that, and the way it operates, is, originally when they came out, they were advertising only at 10 feet submersible. But if you look on the box now and on the website, Garrett website, it's 20 feet submersible.
Nice.
So. For the ones that like to dive and like to do a lot of water hunting like me, and in the rivers, I guess, I can see your aggravation. I can imagine. But a lot of times when I'm in the water, I'll hold it in my hand and just leave it on for a while, because I'm constantly bending down to use it again instead of turning it off. But I
think I'm going to have to try an F-Pulse next. I think that might have to be next. Don't judge me. Don't judge me, Gypsy.
You like it.
I won't judge you.
Yeah, again, it's not that I don't like the Garrett. I think it works flawlessly. Just don't hold the handle, the button too long, and I seem to hold that darn button too long, and then I'm like going through setup, and I'm like, oh my God, I just want to throw this thing in the hole. But it's probably me. I haven't heard anybody else complain about that, but I always do. Somehow.
Strong,
is that what it is? I'm so strong.
Hold it down, pushing it down so hard,
Yeah. Such a tough guy. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, good things coming. Do you know where you're traveling this year?
Right away, I know that we're going to be heading to New Hampshire and doing the bone hunt. That's the main one that I'm really looking forward to, because that's a huge hunt. There's a ton of people there, a ton of big names. Looking forward to meeting a lot of people, regardless of whose team they're on, because we're all in this hobby together.
Right.
It should be fun. I'm really looking forward to that. We're actually, instead of flying up, even though it's a bit of a drive, we're going to drive up, and I may actually take a few extra days and try to book a tour at Oak Island. As gimmicky as that show is, I've been a fan of it just to watch it, because I'm all things treasure. May try to book a tour and go on over to Oak Island, maybe shoot a video over there for people so people know what the tour looks like. Just some stuff like that. We may head out west to do a couple hunts this year. That's debatable. We're talking about one in Florida right now. We're really just trying to get all of our ducks in a row. There's a lot of hunts like the JGD hunt that's in the fall time that don't even have days yet. So it all depends on how the days fall, all that kind of stuff, to whether we can fit it into our schedule or not. Because at the end of the day, I still have a full-time job and a family, as much as I enjoy this hobby, but they come first. So all that kind of stuff I have to think about and plan it accordingly. But I'm really looking forward to the bone hunt.
Yeah, man, you brought something up that I've got to talk about. I got to say real quick. You said that something about the Oak Island. Man, I'll tell you what. Here's what I've. My personal thought on it was always, wow, this seems pretty legit. Like they're in it for this and stuff. I know it's TV. I get that. I know how all that is, but I always felt like it was pretty legit. Well, back in December, we had Randall Sullivan on. He's been on the show, and he wrote the official, with History Channel's stamp of approval, and he wrote a book and got the stamp of approval from the History Channel and from what's the brothers' names?
I can't think of it either.
On the tip of my tongue.
Laginas.
And he talked pretty in depth, and he absolutely believes that there was a treasure there. And some things that I didn't know, I'll tell you real quick, since you're obviously somewhat of a fan, at least a little bit, or interested. One of the things that makes him feel that way, since the beginning, since the 1795, no landowner has charged to have people dig on the land. They've said, if you find it, we split it. So,
right.
And that makes, that's definitely adds some legitimacy to it. I mean, this guy wrote, Randall Sullivan wrote for the Rolling Stones. I think he was the editor of Rolling Stones for a long time. This guy's serious. He's got a lot of clout, and he's got he just didn't pop out of nowhere. This guy's been around a long time. They thought, the brothers, the Laginas thought in the very first season that the production crew planted a coin, and they threatened to shut it down. They said, if you plant something, or if we find that you planted something, you're out of here. We are putting an end to this. And the Laginas were there doing this before the History Channel. The History Channel approached them after they had already started. And they were very reluctant to do it. So Randall Sullivan absolutely believes that there was or is a treasure there. He absolutely believes the Laginas are 100% legit. And it's a really good show. It was a really good time talking to him, but it made me even more, and I know we're off subject here, but I'm sure you see it. Like I'm sure you're on social media. A lot of detectorists think that show's a joke and they make fun of it. I don't get it. I think, there's over 200 years of debris and stuff to sift through, and so much contamination. They're taking their time, and I feel like they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's. And yeah, there's some production to it. Of course there is. There's a TV show involved, but I believe it's legit as can be.
Well, how many detectorists now have YouTube channels and podcasts and everything? We're all in it to a degree for the entertainment aspect as well. But I'm with you in the sense of, I don't know if the treasure's still there or not, but I think they're legit for one reason and one reason only. They haven't found anything substantial. I mean, for 7 years, they haven't found anything massive. They could have put on, if they'd have been finding something awesome every single week, that's where I start questioning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So by them not finding something substantial, and a lot of times it's recaps and stuff, people get fed up with that, I'm sure. But to me, that keeps the show honest, and they're not embellishing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also people need to know they've put a ton of their own money into this. I want to say it's up into the millions of dollars they've put into that's, you don't do that for a show. I don't think they've probably broke even from what they make from the show, from what they've put into it. I'll tell you something that really messes it up though. My brother, here's where the show got really messed up for me. My brother loves the show. Okay. And I was telling him I was having Randall Sullivan on stuff. He was really excited. And my sister-in-law won't watch the show, and she makes fun of my brother for watching it for this reason and this reason only, the announcer. And I can't believe I never realized it before, but listen to it now and think, they find that big chunk of wood with Roman numerals, and they're talking about it, and the announcer goes, Roman numerals? Did he say Roman numerals? And oh my God, I'd never realized it. But now that my sister-in-law makes fun of my brother, every time I listen to him, I'm like, oh my God, there goes that announcer again. It's kind of, shattered for me a little bit.
He's recapping so often, and then it gets a little annoying after a while.
Yeah.
And say the same thing.
Yeah.
Time.
So now it's to the point, my sister-in-law, they'll be sitting around talking, and my brother will say, oh, today we went to lunch at so-and-so, and she's, we went to lunch at McDonald's. Did you say McDonald's? You went to lunch at McDonald's? And she just hounds him with it. So, so next time you listen, pay attention to the announcer a little bit closer. It's hilarious.
I do like the show, though.
Yeah, I do too. Absolutely. All right, Brandon, I'll tell you what, it has been a lot of fun tonight having you on, and get a hold of us when you got more stuff going on, when you got more to talk about or something new to talk about. Does that sound wrong? Gypsy, is that coming across wrong? I mean, if you got, dates of where you're going to be and things like that. I don't mean hey, you're boring, we talked to you. Please don't think it like that. God, that sounded weird or wrong, as I was saying it. But what I mean, when places you're going to be at hunts and stuff like that, and with Fisher and stuff, let us know. We'd, even if you don't have time to come on the show, we can announce it and talk about it a little bit. Or, of course, we'd be more than happy to have you back on the show. So
absolutely, I will definitely keep y'all in the loop. And again, I appreciate y'all having me on tonight, and I've enjoyed talking with y'all.
Oh, same
Thanks
here,
so
Brandon.
Much, Brandon, for coming on. Again, will you tell everyone the name of your channel and other ways, maybe other social media that you're on that can contact you?
Absolutely. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. There again, it's Adventure Archaeology on YouTube. You can also look on Instagram, adventure_archaeology. And we've also got a Facebook page that you can search for under Adventure Archaeology. So you can look at any of those areas. A lot of times I use Facebook as just a supporting page for my YouTube channel because that's where the majority of our work goes in. We do a video weekly, depending on whether it's metal detecting, bottle digging, urban exploration. I mean, it really just depends on what we're doing that week. I like to keep things lively. Here lately, it's been 90% bottle digging, but the tides are changing, and we're going to do a little bit more metal detecting in the coming months. So we've got a lot of good stuff planned for the YouTube channel. Instagram's kind of more of a showing off my personal collection and finds and stuff that we've cleaned up after the deal, because in a lot of our videos, we don't get to clean everything up because we find so much. So that's kind of what the Instagram does. But, yeah, you can check me out in any of those areas.
Absolutely. That's great. And I want to give out a few other Gypsy Jules on Facebook, or on Facebook too, right? And YouTube, Girls Rock Metal Detecting. That's what's she? Oh, geez, here I am off on a bad start at the end. Girls Rock Metal Detecting YouTube. Let's just go with that. Kimmy. Yeah, Kimmy. And I knew Kimmy, but what's she go by on? What's she call herself?
Girls Rock Metal Detecting.
Yeah, but she doesn't use her name. It's Kimmy. Siren Kimmy, that's what I was going for. Oh, geez, Siren Kimmy, yeah. And Ohio Relic Hunting on Facebook. I love that group. Of course, I'm an Ohio guy. Dirt Pirates on Facebook. Here's out of England, YouTube, Huntress Kimmy and Clodhopper Scott, some of my favorites. And tomorrow night, join Matt and myself. We will be talking about the Northwest Indian Wars, or the Ohio Wars. This took place 1785 to 1795. Matt Anthony Wayne, I believe Arthur St. Clair. We're going to talk about forts and routes and all that stuff. That's, being an Ohio guy, and I've got quite a bit of info on that. That'll be a fun show.
That sounds fun.
Absolutely. So, everybody, we appreciate you joining in and listening. Brandon, thank you so much. It was great. We'd love to have you back. Keep us updated. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Thanks, all. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.